All right, we're about to start. If you don't mind standing with me, please. We start off with prayer. All right, let us pray. Father, once again, we want to thank you for your holy Sabbath day. We want to thank you for all your provisions for us physically and otherwise. We thank you that you were able to bring us here safely. I pray, Lord, that you would protect those who are on their way, help them to get here in time, to ask questions, to discuss, to participate, to hear what they need to hear. And help us, Lord, to have a spiritual discussion as we discuss financial matters. In Jesus' name, amen. You may be seated. All right, so over the last 2 days, we discussed some stuff. We started off with some financial advice. And then yesterday, we did touch some tough topics, right, on families. That's probably usually the tough one of whenever I do something like this. It's, because you see things that are happening in your families. And when you hear it, when you see it, you're like, man, I know that's happening. But, we worship and we serve a good God, and he can help us. So as we go through this evening's study, let's look at some stuff we can do, right? But remember this, don't ever get, how should I say, frustrated, distressed. God can pull us out of anything. We just have to be willing to be willing, right? And so we're going to talk about debt-free living. So I got this picture because this is supposed to be our country home, our dream country home. Notice? Hey, Anna, that's what I'm looking for, a dream country home right there, right? I don't know where it is. The goats would just be to eat stuff, not to be eaten. No. Well, we didn't want them in the picture. They were on the other side of the property. So we're going to talk about debt-free living, and everything comes down to stewardship. Every single thing we do comes down to stewardship. So we'll start with Scripture because you know me, Scripture upon Scripture. And we have seen these a couple of times. It says, owe no man anything but to love one another. For he that loveth another hath fulfilled the law. Because we know the law of God is all about love. Love for God and love for each other. The rich, we saw this yesterday, we're looking at it again. The rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. And we know that's why many of us break God's commandments, because we owe so much debt. We're in so much debt that we do whatever we need to do to try and pay that off. That's what this is talking about. Okay? All right. So we're going to discuss some stuff. We're jumping right into where we get into trouble. Right into where we get into trouble. Bob and I were talking about this at lunch. We mix up needs and wants. All right? I am telling you. So many times I hear people say, I need this. I remember a family member we were talking to years ago, and my wife, I think, was on the phone talking to this person that you don't need to do this. And the person was putting up a fence in her, it was a family member, putting a fence around her house. And yeah, that's a good want, but was going to go into debt to do that. No, that's something you pay cash for. You don't need a fence. Even if you have terrible neighbors, suck it up. You don't have to. And fences could cost you a lot of money, right? So let's look at it. We know that we need to eat food. Yes? We need food. We need clothing. We need homes to live in, right? And we may need a transportation. If when I was in New York, transportation was no big deal. I didn't need a car in New York. It was a good convenience, right? But when I would take the buses to go to school, the bus run every 15 minutes, and then later in the night, then, it spread out to half an hour, then it went to every hour or something like that. But here in Florida, we need transportation, right? We need transportation. And so when we look at needs, is what do we really need? So we need clothing, right? So where do we shop? Do we have to go get it at Macy's and Dillard's and all that expensive? Not necessarily. You could get good, not brand name if you want brand name, at TJ Maxx. Right? And if you go there at certain time, Veronia, did you mention something? Right, that's right, yeah. TJ Maxx, Ross, what's the other one? Marshalls. Throw them out there. Bells, you know what I'm saying? Goodwill. Hey, listen, let me tell you, whenever I donate my clothes, I give it to Goodwill because I know people shop there and I know I buy good clothes. I have seen folks I work with. I remember this professor I was working, and I'm like, man, that's, and I kind of, unfortunately, I should know this, but I kind of know designer suits. And I'm like, why are you wearing that? And he's like, how did you know? I said, I know the cut. And he said, man, I picked this up at Goodwill. Somebody that spent how much money gave it, and it was in perfect condition, you know? So you can go to we have friends, well, not friends, acquaintances that shop at thrift stores that people go, you know, consignment places. Because what happens, let's say I don't want to just give away my clothing. I could go to a consignment place and say, here's the deal. When you sell it, you take 20% and I get the rest. Okay? And so those are other good places. But I went to TJ Maxx. I'm glad people said Ross and Marshalls, because you can get, if you feel like you need to get new stuff. Now, here's the thing. There was a reason I stayed away from Walmart. And I had some colleagues I worked with in marketing a number of years ago, and they did a research and showed that places like Walmart actually cost you more money over time. The clothing does not last. You just spend less each time, but you keep buying the same thing over and over and over. So I stay away because they sell you cheap stuff, which is for cheap, but you have to keep replacing it. I have suits I've had for 10, 15 years. Okay? Right? Because I buy stuff that lasts. So I stay away from them. Yes, wait.
You want to see my newest suit?
Yes.
I got on. I've had it about 20 years.
See? Right? So when you buy something decent, yes, Linda. Yes. Yeah. You can, and buy when it's on sale. I don't mind waiting for things to run. I do not pay full price for anything. Yes.
The other question just came from, like, builders, when they have sale,
Good. Yeah.
right? And we as a church, it's like, let's not keep it to ourselves. Let's tell each other. If I can buy something for $2, $5, I want to buy it for $5
Yep.
instead of $8.
Want or need?
What is a want or a need?
No, a want. Somebody can want, like I want.
Yeah. And I'm not saying you can't get some of your wants. The problem is we confuse needs with wants. And if you are in debt, when we're in debt, we should be focusing on needs. Right? And then I even throw in desires, you know. If you have no debt, you're taking care, you're doing what you need to do. You are, you know, contributing, you're returning a faithful tithe and offering. You're doing what you need. The church needs help, you're there to help. There's nothing wrong with taking a nice vacation, you know, if you can afford it. Well, it's against my religion to put, my other religion, to put vacation on a credit card. I would not do that. When we couldn't afford a vacation, guess what we did? We did staycations. We would take off, my wife and I, take off a week, you know, at different times when the children are off, and we would just drive we couldn't even stay at a hotel. We would drive to this place, one-day trip. We bought a book for $9.99 or something like that, one-tank trips from, it was published by Bay News 9, I think. And that's what we did our staycations in. That's when we lived in Florida. We're like, wait a minute, we live in a great vacation place. People pay a lot of money to come here. And we're trying to run from here, go somewhere else. And so we learned so many things, you know. We went to Ginny Springs one time. We've just gone different places, right? So you can still have a good vacation without leaving your home to go away. But don't. I've seen too many people put vacations on credit cards. No, you shouldn't do that. That is not a smart thing. Those are desires that we're throwing on our cars. You can't afford it. What you do, this is one of the reasons when you have a budget, right? When you have a budget, you put the savings for vacation on the budget, right? You save for it. You save for it. And so, but we have to be careful. Like, again, now, I shouldn't even, I threw in grillers in there, right? I shouldn't even, but I know some people still eat their steak and their chicken, and hopefully not the other stuff we shouldn't be eating, right? But, you know, we were not meant to stay on things like grillers and all that fake food. We were not meant to stay on those plastic food. That's what I call it. It was a transition thing. We're supposed to be transitioning to be eating vegetables, fruits, but we stop at there. My wife will tell you, I do not like that plastic food. You give me vegetables and fruits all day long, okay? But we get offended when people like me say that, but I have to tell you, that stuff has so much preservative. That's probably why some of us are on diet, because we have so much preservative. We're walking dead people. If you look at the salt content in some of those things, you wonder why we have, in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, we shouldn't have so much illnesses. If we look at all the other things they put in it to keep those things so that you and I can eat them, we would not eat them at all. Go to your backyard or go to a farmer's market close by as much as possible. Get some vegetables, right? Go to Anna's backyard. Well, Jerry's backyard too. Yeah. We have to remember, it's Jerry's backyard too. But again, we mix up needs and wants, right? And like I said, desires should only take place when everything else is going well, okay? You have to have as much money as Carol to do that, all right? To go on the desires part. So again, don't mix up these things, but know that all right, let me give you an example. Another example. My wife and I, you know, we are by ourselves now. Kids are both of them married out of the house. Why would we need a 3,000 square foot house? We don't. First thing, it's so much, and the way we clean our house, we be cleaning every day. You don't know how I love the small house we have now. In less than half an hour, I can go through it on a Sunday morning, or she can go through it during the week and get it done. When?
I was just thinking about the promise in my father's house with many mansions. I really don't care to have one. I don't. You wouldn't have a staff of servants to keep it clean for it.
I think it's observing.
It's what in heaven?
He said no dust.
No dust in heaven? Well, listen. Honestly, yes, Rosie.
God will say you want it or you need it.
Yeah,
Somewhere in between.
They see that? Bob is fighting the in-between with Rosie. Rosie's like, Bob, I'm not certain if it's want or need, but I know I must have it. Right? But no, seriously, when you think the average, I remember looking at a stats one time. I didn't look at it this time, bad on me, when I was doing another presentation, and they were saying the average household, right, was a family with 2 kids and 1.5 pets, something like that. First thing, let me stay away from that. Don't want to offend anyone. But that's what they said. But yet still, they said the average person wants like 3,000-4,000 square foot house. Why do you need all that? Now, I am not saying that you should be like what my parents could afford and did. We had a 2-bedroom house in Jamaica, and my parents had 8 kids. Don't ask me how they had 8 kids with a 2-bedroom house. I don't know. That's a miracle. That's a miracle. But we lived. We all went to school. right? They didn't try, my parents made decisions like this. Do you want to eat or get an education? We say we wanted to eat. They said, no, you're getting an education. So they would literally, what I mentioned this morning, my parents, they would pay our tuition and buy our books, because high school in Jamaica is not free. You have to pay for everything. There's no free. Elementary school, now some people may send their kids to private elementary schools, but most elementary schools in Jamaica are free, but high school is expensive. And having, well, it's similar in that in Jamaica there's no middle school. And so it starts from the 7th grade all the way through 12th grade. We don't do middle school in Jamaica. It's all the way from 7 through 12. You have middle, 7, 8, 9, and then 10, but we start right at 7th grade. And I'm telling you, it is expensive. So my parents, they would literally, we had a lime tree in the backyard. Actually, it wasn't even our lime tree. It was the neighbor's lime tree. But she was a little mean to us, so what God did was the tree gravitated to our side, and she tied it up. No, literally. She literally tied it up and to pull it back, and the other limbs came over our yard. And so we had to pick limes and gave it to her. And when she saw us doing that, she removed the string and we became closer, and then her part started bearing. I'm not joking. God showed her, you behave like that, this is how. So we would pick the leaves off the lime tree. My parents would boil it, put a little sugar in it, we would drink it, and that's all we had. We went to school. Oh no, they prayed for us. One of my most embarrassing moments, the bus stop was up the street, and I just was tired of the lime leaf tea. I'm like, listen, I don't want it anymore. I'm coming to you, Sandra. I don't want it anymore. And I left and went to the bus stop, and here comes my mom in her old slippers with my lime leaf tea. And you see, when I grew up, you didn't say no to your parents. So I just sucked it up. And the friends, they laughed at me, but it was okay, I mean, I was honorable. I honored my parents. But that's what sometimes we had. Sandra? Hey, listen. Now it would probably taste good. Because you drink it because you want to drink it. But again, don't mix up your needs with your wants, okay? All right, so we're going to look at some steps to financial freedom. And I understand this is not, many of us going to have to make some decisions that are tough. Some of us are in some tough positions, okay? And literally only God can pull us out of there. So please don't ever think I'm saying that you could have avoided this situation. Sometimes, I have a brother that he's now back on his feet, but when he lost his job because he was a high-paid accountant, and we were actually on vacation when he got the email that he lost his job. They didn't even wait till the man come off of his vacation. And so, things got tough for him, but fortunately he has a loving family that helped him through. So some of us have hit some really hard times through no fault of our own. But some of us, we put ourselves here, right? So what is the first thing we do? Now, we're not going to go through these scripture verses, but you need to write them down because we have much to do, and then we have another presentation later. But we need to transfer ownership to God, right? Everything belongs to God. The problem is we treat it like it's ours and not God's. And so because of that, even though God may give us stuff, he can't bless it as he would like to because we treat it like ours and we don't first give back to him what he deserves. And so we don't transfer ownership to God. And I'm saying everything, be careful how you treat anything God gives you. Anything. I'm very serious here. You can't just, if you know somebody is going to use a tool you have on the Sabbath day, don't lend it to them. And I know you may say, but I'm not the one doing it. Yeah, but you're giving it to the person knowing they're going to use it on the Sabbath day. So you tell them, listen, how about this? When are you going to use it? This, all right, I'll give it to you Sunday morning. So at least you have 4 or 5 days to use it. But I'm coming to get it Thursday. Don't even wait till Friday. Then you can't find him on Friday. And when you're at church Sabbath, he's using your lawnmower. Okay? Then, no, it's a little harder to do this. Get out of debt and stay out. Now, I will tell you this. Some of us are in tough situations. I understand that. But some of us, honestly, it's because of selfish desires. For instance, do we need more clothing? Do we need to spend that much on certain type foods? You know, the more simple we go, the better it is, right? But if you go to God, honestly, I'm telling you, if you go to God and say to God, listen, you know I want to get out of debt. I don't have, for instance, if you're in debt and you have a cable that you're spending, how much is cable nowadays? $100 and something dollars? $200, you know? I know we had basic, so when we save, when we cut off our cable, we save $100 and something dollars a month. Just cutting off cable. You do not need cable. Trust me, you do not need cable. If you buy a Roku stick for like $39 or something like that, okay, and you plug that in and you have internet at your home, you get everything you need. Everything you need. And it's a one-time payment. You get so many sermons. I mean, I went home, thought I was going to get a little, what my son called a power nap. We were watching a sermon, right? Because I like to watch sermons. And so, you know, there are things we can do. So before you say, again, I don't know your individual situations. Before you say, I can't do that, are you willing to ask God to show you where you can start cutting back? For instance, my son mentioned last night that some people, they have to have a can of Coke like every day, right? You cut back, you think about that. If you drink a can of Coke every day, you know, roughly, let's say you do that, which you shouldn't be drinking Coke, right? But so let's switch to something else. He used Coke because he talks to people when he gives financial advice that they drink either Pepsi or Coke or something, you know, because, you know, they get addicted to that stuff. But let's say a soda pop. Or forget it. Let's even go healthier. A bottle of water. Why buy water when you can drink the water from the fountain or something? I don't buy water at work. I go drink the fountain water they have. But do you know that is common? You see, that's what people say all the time. But the bottom line is, I don't know. If you... Listen, all I'm going to say, we can come up with every reason there is. But you know what I do? Listen, and I can afford bottled water. But I refuse to waste money. You know, they did a research on all those bottled water. If you know where some of that bottled water, Evian, one of the most expensive water, was giving tap water. They got busted for filling up the bottle, and we say it tastes better. Oh yeah, it tastes better. But they prove. Zephyr Hills got in trouble a little bit for some stuff. Yes, was it? Yes. It's different. It's that dirty Hudson water from New York. It's delicious. Different salary. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, right. There you go. Yep. Right. Listen, I am telling you, we can justify different ways, and we will continue to be in debt. Yes. Yeah. Uh-huh. Buy a good filter. Lasts you for a while, right? But here's the deal. Again, you know what I do? Honestly, I'm going to tell you this. My doctor, other than my hip the other day, she tells me I'm one of the healthiest person that comes into her office. They forgot to book my annual physical. And I said, am I not supposed to do an annual? I'm in my 50s. I'm supposed to be. And they're like, oh, yeah, we forget that. We need to get you done. I pray. I'm trying not to waste God's money. We can do everything to try and protect ourselves the best way. I'm not telling you go see if someone tells you definitely this is this, do this. But we get so used to wanting what we want. That's what it comes down to. We get so used to wanting what we want that we're not willing. I know this is tough, right? We want to keep doing what we want to do. And so therefore, because that's what we want to do, then we're not willing. I am telling you, I won't ask folks, but there are some people who will never let go off their cable. Why? All the garbage that's on it, is that what you don't want to let go of? The garbage? You can't watch anything on cable TV that's worth anything. And you don't want to watch the news anyway, because the news is very controlled, and they give you the worst things. How many times have you seen them give you something on the news that's worthwhile listening to? Right? They give you all the dirty, nasty, negative news, but any good thing that happened, they won't tell you that stuff.
So they give you like 2 minutes of here's a cute little story.
Okay, all right. On the weather, right? Yes.
Like going through a garbage can for
Don't. Seriously. Don't. Yes, Jim.
My Roku gives me everything I get on cable anyway.
What you need to look at, right? I'm telling you, you can, and that's one of the biggest ones, right? One of the big. All right. The other thing is, where can we also cut some money? Why do you need to spend all that time on your cell phone? Some of us, we buy the biggest surfing plan there ever. We have a surfing plan so big, Hawaii surfers could surf on it. We both need this for work. I think we share 2 gigs of data, me and my wife, on the same plan. 2 gigs of data, because guess what? I do not live on my cell phone. Sometimes I wish I could throw it away. But then they would probably fire me because they need to get a hold of me. But, yeah? Oh, yeah. Win didn't even buy one. He says, let Linda deal with the cell phone. That's how he gets his news. But the thing is, why do we need to live on our cell phones? There was a time when people would actually read from actual reading, and then the more we spend looking at this technology, it messes up our eyes anyway, it does all these other things. But people don't want to hear that stuff. We want all the data we want all this, we want all that. No, you need to cut back. Hold on there, Liz and then Kyle. And on average, so there are people that's living on there all day. Kyle? It becomes a god. Yes, Madge, go ahead. No, your hand started going up, Madge. It's like an auction in here. You move, I call on you. Okay. All right, so listen, we could stay on this, but your job, honestly, your responsibility is to pray to God. And if you go to God sincerely and ask Him to show you where you can cut, He will show you. I'm not saying this will be the case for everybody, but I know from my experience with doing financial counseling with others, it is many of us fall in that. But again, it's funny how I will equate it to this. I was at a church one time, and my wife and I were very disgusted at what happened. We had a great weekend health seminar. Great, Friday night, and then the Sabbath, and then Saturday evening. And then right after Sabbath, they had a little reception. Do you know what they fed the people? We just went through a health cake, pizza. We just went through a health seminar. This is what people do. We go through a seminar like this that the community service puts on, and then we say, I don't want to hear that. No, I'm serious. Yes, Anna. All right. Saving the crumbs. Is the website? A blog. Okay. All right. So again, pray to God, because we could stay on here all night, right? Now, number 3, accept God's provisions. If God only right now says you need to drive a used Toyota Corolla, you don't need to go buy a Lexus. No, seriously. That's what God wants you to drive right now. You do not. All right, Madge, you ready? That's true. If you can afford it. But that's what I'm saying. If God, so I drive a Mini Cooper, all right? And it's not the cheapest car, but I have students at school drive Benz, this, and I say to them, are you driving a Beamer? And they will take more student loans than they should be taking, because they take as much and they use it. I'm like, why are you buying cars? I said, that expensive. I said, when I was in college, I drove an old Chevy Chevette. I paid $500 for it, and I spent $290, gave it to a Jamaican mechanic, and he worked a miracle. And drove that car for a while, okay? But the thing is, if that's all we want, the reason we cannot be thank you so much, Madge, we can't be the head we need to be, is because God can't trust us to be there, because the little He gives us, right? I had a family member one time got upset with me because he said, well, my car was 5 years old. I said, really? So you need to buy another car? I said, what's wrong with the car? Well, it's 5 years old. I said, again, why do you need to buy a car? Nothing was wrong with the car. He was driving a Honda CR-V. Nice car, good car, will last him really long, right? But no, we don't want to accept. This is what God has given us right now. Accept it. Thank Him for it and move on. Refuse. Madge said she fell in this part here. She says she's impulsive. All right. Refuse to make quick decisions. Not on those things. She's just impulsive with her movements. Refuse to make quick decisions. Before I buy a car or we buy stuff, let me tell you, my wife and I look at stuff. I mean, sometimes when we have to if we're buying another house for whatever reason, we look at it and we have to go back. I think the realtors don't like us for that. Because we have to make sure this is it. And then she goes and knocks the walls, I don't know if she's checking for termite or something. But she checks it out because her dad thought he had 5 girls. And you guys had a rental property, right, in New York City? Yeah, and so he taught his girls how to do things and how to check things out. So honestly, she's that person. The first time she asked me to put up a wall with her interior, we took down a wall, extended it. I'm like, I'm an accountant. Accountant don't do that. She's like, we can do this. And I literally, no, I'm going to say it the correct way. I helped her build a wall that was about 9-10 feet that way and like about 9 feet up. And I said, how are we going to do it? She said, no, we'll build it on the floor. She knew exactly what to do. So we helped, and my son and I helped put it in, and we went to, I went to work, took him to school. We were in Oklahoma. When we got back, the sheetrock was up. She had taped it already, was getting ready to mud it. And so, while she was doing that, I just cooked dinner. I figure she's working there, I'll make a delicious meal, right? So, refuse to make quick decisions, though. Don't just go jump and get some. Think about it. Do I really need to do this? Because sometimes we make these decisions and then we regret it later on. So don't go making quick decisions. And then here, the Bible tells us to excel in work. See, some of us are lazy. Not saying in here, the general us. The general us. We will say the reason I got fired is because they don't like me. But you would go to work, and then that's another thing. Some people spend so much time on their cell phones, and so you are actually robbing those folks of the time that you want pay for. And so one of the things I do to help my students, because I remember having to talk to, when I was in corporate working, I'd have to talk to young accountants that come in, or financial professionals, and I'd say, put on your phone. Don't take your phone to the meetings. You don't need your phone in this meeting. Right? If anything, I need you to have a calculator, and not the calculator app on your phone. I want you to have a real calculator. And so in my classes, and I have people of all age groups. Sometimes I've taught 50-some-year-old, and I say, everyone, no phones in this is my classroom. You pay for the privilege to get an education. And they're like, I said, if you take out your phone, you're out of my classroom. And at St. Leo, all I have to do is pick up the phone in the classroom, call security, and they'll pull you. They won't ask any questions. The professor calls and says, I have a disruptive student, you are out of there. I have more control of my classroom than high school teachers have of their classrooms. And I deal with mostly adults, okay? Well, they think they're adults. They're not really adults. But we need to excel in work. We, as Seventh-day Adventists, should be the best workers. Do you know that? No one should question our work ethic. No one. Win? And then Darrell? Yeah. No. Mm-hmm. No, they can check everything. You shouldn't be using. Yeah. That's why I have a Yahoo email along with, I teach at UT also, so I have a UT email, a St. Leo email, but I have my personal Yahoo email, because they have a right to run all your emails, because it's not your email, it's theirs that they allow you to use. You had something to say, Win? No? You good? Yes. Yes, yeah. But what I'm saying, there's certain things people put on it, and then they wonder, only, like, if I don't mind them seeing stuff, I don't care. They know, But if I have something truly private, I keep it on my Yahoo, because I've heard people say, well, why did they see that? Because if they scan your email and they see things that contrary to the core values of the company, you could be fired. Yeah. You have to be very careful, all right? So again, excel in work, confession and restitution. We talk about Matthew 5:23-24. The reason earlier, and then you can go look in Mark. Mark gives you the other side. But one of the reasons God cannot bless us to financial freedom is because we still have things that we need to take care of with each other. We need to go. If we know we have done something to someone, we need to go. That's where Mark kind of comes in, right? We need to go and confess. We need to confess, our faults to each other and our sins to God, right? But we have so many outstanding things that we need to deal with God, and so we still want Him to bless us, but yet still we haven't gone through our lives and asked for forgiveness. So one of the things I do, and I'm fortunate, I periodically walk around campus by myself, and sometimes people, they're like, why are you talking to yourself? I said, no, I'm talking to God. I'm just doing it, a little bit out loud so they see my mouth moving. And I will ask God to show me sins in my life that I need to ask for forgiveness. And He does. And as soon as He shows me, I ask for forgiveness. Yes. Oh, is mistreatment of wife, it says it's in Peter, what's that? Ooh. It's in one of Peter's writings where it talks about men should treat their wives as the weaker vessel, not, right? And if we don't, the bottom line, it was saying, if we don't love our wives like we need to, then our prayers will be hindered. And so some of that, we have issues going on, not just with our spouses, with others, and so it's hard for God to bless us, and so that then we're not contented. It goes back to that want and desire type thing. We're not contented with where we are in life. We have to realize that some of us will never be rich. We'll never even be where we can make ends meet the way we want it to meet. And that's God's decision. But this is a temporary life. God promised us that He has mansions for us, right? Take a longer view of the situation. Stop thinking about right here, right now. I remember I had this job that, man, they were stressing me out, and we did well. I think that's probably the job I made the most money, and I moved pretty rapidly. I started off as a staff accountant, and I got about 7 promotions in 6 years. And I was the youngest person to make it that high, but I was working hard. It's one of the reasons my wife and I were separated, okay? Because I was doing 16, 18-hour days, no problem. But guess what? I was a good, how should I put this? I was never working on the Sabbath. I wasn't a good Sabbath keeper. I just never worked on the Sabbath. But they knew they could count on me to work every Sunday all the way till 1 hour before sunset. So they never gave me a hard time about that, because I would work 6 days a week. And I would tell my wife, I would quote that to her, 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. But the 7th day, watching my family go to pots, and I was just doing, but I worked, and I got to a point, but it got so stressful. And then after my wife and I separated, she went back to New York, and I literally left that job. And I remember getting a call, and they offered me the position because I never wanted to be president. That is just too much right there. But I was now going to become vice president. And I remember saying to my wife, hey, they called me. They want me to come back and be. And she looked at me and said, should you call? I said, no, we are not going there. And she said, well, probably you can control situations. No, you know why you can't control those situations? Because guess who they remembers? The person who works 16, 18-hour days. Not the one that I was going to go in and say, all right, I'll put in 10 hours or 11 hours. No, they're not going to want that person. They want the one that was working himself to death, okay? So we need to learn to be contented, right? Like Sandra said, you know, she had to learn to be contented. My wife and I have tried that with family members from up north. Similar to you, Sandra, when my wife came from New York to Florida, 50% roughly pay cut. I wasn't that bad. I took a 30-some% pay cut. So I was a little better off than she was. But you know what, though? We could still buy a house here, but we couldn't buy one in New York. Aha. So we have tried the cost of living, right? So we try to convince our family members of that, but they don't want to hear that stuff. All they see is the gross pay. When you're in New York, especially we lived in classified New York City, so we were paying state taxes, local taxes, and city taxes. So for every dollar you got paid, you got like 50-some cents. Oh yeah, and that's before they take out any medical or anything like that. Fortunately, both of us didn't pay for medicals. We worked for companies that picked up our medical for us. But the first time, literally, they thought I was crazy. I was working down here, and my first paycheck I got, I think, because my wife was carrying the medical stuff, so I got like 80-something cents for each dollar. So I went to HR and I said, you didn't take out enough. And they said, are you a Yankee? That's exactly what they said. I said, do I look like a Yankee? I'm a Jamaican. I didn't understand what they meant, you know. And they're like, you Yankees, you don't know any better. We don't take all those taxes out, right? So you still get more disposable income from what you earn. You don't get all that you used to make, but you still do well, right? And then balanced commitments. Now, too many of us have too many irons in the fire. You know, we're trying to do everything, you know, and we're spending money here. But this a lot goes to parents. You know, with our son, when he was in high school, he got to do one. So before we were convicted that sporting activities wasn't appropriate, you know, competitive sport. But he got to do one per year. One. I know parents, man, I don't know where they get time for their parents, for their kids. Because one child is in baseball, at the same time another one is in softball, one is in basketball, one is in track, and they're running all around the place, and they never get time to spend with the family. And every term, somebody has to be playing something. And so, therefore, the family is struggling. You know, and so one of the reasons that helped me with that, my parents always spent time with us. You know, we were forced into, even though we were really good runners in Jamaica, we lived in the ghetto, so we had to get back before nightfall, so we couldn't join the track team anyway. That was probably designed by God, you know, to protect us from that stuff. And then sacrifice desires. Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Sabbath. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Hmm. Well, but you shouldn't feel guilty. You show him the Bible. It's either he accepts it or he doesn't. You know, you show him in a loving way. You see, what we were upset with our parents, but they told us, they said, listen, our job is to keep you safe. They said, if you come, because practices in Jamaica would happen after school. So, and you know, all of us were really fast runners, right? And so therefore, we had people who run for the Olympic team that we were faster than when we were in high school. But because we had to our neighborhood was so dangerous that you could get shot after dark. You know, that's how dangerous it was. There were times when in the mornings we would look at each other, and there was a look at each other that I hope I see you later. That's how dangerous. And I'm not joking. There are no friends that I grew up with in Jamaica that made it. Most of them didn't make it to high school, and the rest did not. I cannot name one friend. Well, actually, I didn't grow up with him. I met him in high school. But from my neighborhood, none of the guys that I grew up with as friends were made it through high school. They were killed because they wouldn't listen to their parents, like, so even though, like we did, we honored our parents. We were upset with them, but we came home anyway. The ones who kept staying, you'd hear, this one died. This one died. You did what you knew was correct. You shouldn't feel guilty for holding high the standards of God. You show it to them and you pray for them, but don't feel guilty about that. My son, at age, when he was in the 8th grade in Oklahoma, which is a running state, he was faster than seniors. But he was born in America, but he had Jamaican genes in him, right? And literally, they wanted him to run. And so at the time, we weren't convicted that, competitive type things. We didn't read Sister White's writings clearly on that. And so he was running. So what I would do, I would have him run with them. And I actually coached the team. And I remember somebody said, well, you're letting him run. He's in the 8th grade. He's not even a high schooler. He shouldn't be running on the varsity team. I said, actually, he can. It's just that a high schooler, a varsity person, can't run on the JV team. And I literally lined them up. I said, here, I got the 8 best people, and I put the 7 best people, I put them with my son, and I said, if 4 of you beat him, then you get his spot. They couldn't. But he knew this. My wife and I told him, you can run, but on Sabbath, you will not be running. And that's the glory day. That's the day when you win the awards. And they would be upset with us because he would carry the team, because he ran on the relay team, and they couldn't put him in the individuals, and I wouldn't let him go in the individuals because no one can replace you as an individual. So for the big competitions, I would put him only on the relay team. And he would get them, and they would go lose on Sabbath. And they were upset with him. The other thing they were upset with him, he played football. He was the fastest running back they had. No, different times. Oh no, he was never in 2 things at the same time. He gave up track, played football. Well, no, he did track, then football. And when he was playing football, the coach told, was it me or you, they told that he had another Adventist person on the team, and the pastor gave him permission to run on the Sabbath. Can you believe that? To go play football on the Sabbath. And our son was the first string running back. They demoted him to 3rd string. Even though they only had 2 or 3 games on the Sabbath, but because he told them, I cannot play on Sabbaths, but I can play the other Thursdays, they demoted. He hardly ever got to play. But by then, he was learning that, hey, this is a God thing, So he learned, and he looks back at it, and he tells me, he said, Dad, I'm glad. And he had gotten hurt playing football. And he said, you know what? I think God hurt me, let me get hurt, because he said, I was still thinking, but Dad, I could be running. I could be doing this. But he tore a tendon sheath or something. But check this out. Counsels on stewardship. The prophet says, make a solemn covenant with God that by his blessing you will pay your debts and then owe no man anything if you live on porridge and bread. I told you when my wife and I were fighting our way out of debt, ramen noodles. I told you, what did I say was our dining out? Hungry always was our treatment. $5 pizza. You'd rather eat ramen noodles, right? But that's it. Yes, I wanted Papa John's, but she wasn't going to let, and I was the one doing the finances, but she was like, this is all we could afford. So even the finance guy didn't get a say in what we ate. All right, so, but we have to make that sacrifice. Do you know if all we have is porridge and bread, that will provide all the nutrients we need because that's what we have. Yes. That's it. Bread and water. Look. All right. And make sure you drink the water an hour before you eat the bread. It is true. You have to educate your kids. Yes.
One time we went to some contest, and I was just great. I could make bread. So my son said to me, "What do you just make bread?"
Hey, listen.
I said, "You better thank God your brother can make bread."
And so this is what we have to do. We have to be willing to sacrifice stuff, right? And get out of debt. Now, we have gone through, we're not going to spend too much time. This is just a reminder from, this is the third time I'm going through this with you, right? Pray for guidance, okay? But this repetition, very important. Pray for guidance. Track your current spending. We need to know what we're spending. Where are we spending? And track every penny. Like my son reiterated last night, whenever he works with anyone, they have to track their expenses. I will not work with you or anyone unless you're willing to track your expenses. And with me, if you're not willing to do it for 3 months, I cannot help you. Because over a quarter, normally you see things. It doesn't mean you see everything, but you will see a lot more expenses that are popping up. Establish a budget. You do not want to establish a budget before you know what you're spending. That doesn't make sense. I'm just telling you that. If you try to set a budget without knowing what you're spending, no companies do that. In fact, when I was in corporate and I was director of a finance, we were looking, every year we're looking at 3 to 5 years to create the current budget for another 3 to 5 years, okay? Compare your actual to budget. If maybe you overstated somewhere, I told you, I don't remember which night I told you, my wife and I had a house and she was doing so much work on it that I had to put Home Depot in as an expense. But she was saving us so much money in labor. Because if you think you want to do work, if you can't do work yourself, that's where you spend money. Learn to do some stuff. I used to tell her for years, God did not make me to do manual labor. He created me to be an accountant. But you see, my wife is a smart woman. I remember she said, hey, we need to tile a house, right? And we just did not. We checked it out and it cost so much. And so she said, you know, we could do this. And I said, do what? I've never put down a piece of tile and just sand much more to grout. But you know what she did? She knows that, you know, like most men are, I'm visual. She bought a videotape, VHS tape. You know what that is? All right. And one Saturday night after church, she said, just watch this. And we watched it. And I'm like, we could do this. Because once you see it, and they were walking you through it, and she's like, I'm telling you, I wouldn't even let her tile after that. From then on, I'm the only one that tiled the house, because she couldn't do it well enough for me. Right? And so she does a lot, and I would do flooring. So today, even if we're doing flooring, it's me and my son that do flooring, and then she does the other stuff, right? So we need to sometimes help ourselves, but we need to track our expenses, analyze the differences, right? Why are there differences? Now, most people, they only spend time looking at the negative differences. Not good enough. The positive differences are just as important, because you want to know why they're positive so you can reproduce those results in other areas of your life. And then the ones that are negative, you want to get rid of those, okay? All right, so then now we go decide on if you need any adjustments, okay? It doesn't mean, oh, I have extra money, I can go buy a new dress or a new suit. No. It means you have more money to pay off some debt. Okay? Or yes, oh, the church needed something else. Let's store up some treasure in heaven. Okay? List your debts. We have gone through this. The reason you list your debts, smallest to largest, because you pay off the small one, and don't worry about the interest rate. I got a call one time from a financial paper, and as faculty, we do get calls like that. I'm quoted so many times for different reasons. And they asked me, they said, we saw something you wrote where you talk about paying off smallest. They said, what about the interest rate? I said, you don't want to worry interest rates, because if the highest interest rate is on a debt that's a high amount, what happens, it takes you so long, you'll get frustrated. I said, but when you start paying off those, and so we had a really good conversation, and they're like, you know what, we have never heard that, but that's what we need to do. And so they wrote up a piece about that. We need to do it. It makes us feel good to get out of debt. So instead of 7 credit cards, you have 6. Then you have 5. Before you know it, I'm telling you, you get greedy. You just want to keep paying and paying and paying off your debts, okay? And then we keep adding, right? So again, we have gone through this for the third time. Now let's talk and help our young people a little bit. See, too often, we want to look too good in the eyes of our children. And we don't tell them, we don't come, now don't give them all the deep, dark, dirty secrets that will mess them up for life. But if you did, Anna will talk to them, okay? So here's what you do. Just give them enough to help them. Involve them in discussion on finances. I am so privileged and glad that my parents did that with me, because I give credit to my mom for being a finance person. My mom she went to high school, never went to college, but she was the financier in our family. And she and my dad would talk to me. The rest, they wanted to talk to all of us, but I was the only one who listened. And I started learning finances when I was way young. And I watched how she would spend nothing to make sure we were okay. So involve them in discussion on finances. Then encourage them to make school a priority. You know, it doesn't matter and give them a chance to figure out where they need to go. We have a family member, let me put it this way. That way I don't say something to mess up anyone. But the decision was made by that person's mother that he was not college material. And I said, and my wife and I begged, we're like, no, don't do that. You don't know that. Yes, he's really good with his hands, but give him a shot. You know, he followed, as a good son, followed and went to school and did well in a trade. But later, talking to him, he wished he had gone to college. And he says, who knows what would have happened? Don't make any decisions about where your children go end up. Guide them and help them to go. And I know sometimes we're thinking, well, I want to protect them, Let them feel their way out and be there when they don't do as well. Be there to support them, right? So we have to be careful. Share some financial mistakes with them. Sometimes we don't do that. And they end up do you know that because we pass on some negative genes onto them, they will end up doing some of the same things we did. But share it, let them look out for it. And when they see it coming, they're like, I remember Dad telling me, or Mom told me to look out for that thing that's coming my way. Share it with them. You don't have to give them every single piece of detail, right? Discuss the appropriate uses of credit cards. We talk about if you have a credit card, that should be for emergency, and it doesn't mean emergency, I want to go on a vacation. We talk about that, right? Vacation that's not an emergency. Encourage them to open savings and checking accounts, right? If they save, it builds what? Good habits. I don't care how much. Do you remember, and they probably have that here, but in Jamaica when we were in high school, we used to have this Scotia bank account where, and you would put money in, right? They taught us to save, and that was a good thing. And so not only that you tell them to open, encourage them to save. It doesn't matter they have a savings account and they don't put money. It's like a person wanting a job, creates a great resume, and never sends it out. Why did you even create the resume? So therefore, encourage them, and then encourage them to make wise purchases. With our son, and I primarily focus on our son because our daughter kind of left home early because of rules situation. So I have most of the experience, but she's doing much better now, right? We have some rules situation. We had more stories with our son, but we taught him to make wise purchases. I remember when he wanted to buy he came to me and said that, because when people would give him money or we would, hey, listen, I don't care who gave him the money. You lived in our house. That was going in the savings account. He couldn't tell me Auntie Allison gave him money. Who cares? You're in our house, you're going to save it. While we had other family members say, but so-and-so gave it to them, it's their money. I said, but they live in your house. Your job is to guide them. And so I remember he came to me and he says, I want to buy a CD player or an MP3. Back then, iPods. Do you remember iPods? They had the nanos and then the 30 gig. And I said, why would you want to buy a CD player? That's not going to be worth anything, or it won't be good anyway. I said, why don't you, here he comes to. I said, why don't you buy an iPod? And he said, Dad, I didn't think you would allow me to spend that much money. And he's like, yeah, I could get a nano for so and so. I thought, no. I'm talking about invest in a 30 gig one, because he would listen to all these Christian music. I said, you could put all those on one thing. And we used to travel a lot driving. And I said, you could, when you don't want to hear your mom and I talking, you could just play that, right? So encourage them to make wise purchases, things that are going to last. That thing lasts them forever. Probably someone, whatever happened to your iPod? Did it get stolen or something? Oh, you see, he sold it, right? But encourage them, not things that are going to, you're going to get rid of it in 2 months because it's a fad, right? Something that means, oh, that is not good. Sorry about that. All right. The love of display. Check this out. The love of display produces extravagance, and in many young people, kills the aspiration for a nobler life. Instead of seeking an education, they early engage in some occupation to earn money for indulging the passion for dress. Then says, and through this passion, many a young girl, and we can say young men also, is beguiled to ruin. Let them make education a priority. Tell them about deferred gratification. I tell my students all the time, when I was in New York going to school, I bought a pair of Clarks, because see in Jamaica, you buy a pair of Clarks, that lasts forever. So I invested $100 and something for a pair of Clarks, but that thing lasts me all the way through my time in college and long after that. I bought some, I didn't even like jeans back then. I bought 2 pair of jeans, right? One lighter one darker denim one, and then I bought some shirts. And for school, I had 2 pair of jeans rotating going to college. They didn't know if I had 16 pairs of jeans. I had 2 and 1 pair of shoes. I had my church clothes, and other than that, I was just rotating the same. So, you know what my addiction now is? Clothing. So that's what you need to pray for me about. No, I am not. My wife will tell you. I'd buy clothes at the drop of a hat, okay? Because I did without clothing so long, right? And wore hand-me-down when I was younger. So I like nice clothing. So, but God is working on me, okay? So we have to be careful to help them. Those who have not, check this out, those who have not good judgment in the use of time and money should advise with those who have had experience. But too often, it's my business. If you see somebody that takes care of things well, they look like they know what's going on, talk to them. You don't have to go dump everything on them all at once, but check them out. See if they're giving you good advice, you know? And if you don't, you know, if you need advice, talk to each other. But talk to people you can trust. Because your financial business is private business. And you don't want to just tell everyone, anybody. You have to be. So ask God to lead you to the appropriate person, right? Then now, we're going to talk about some credit score. Says, you know you can get a copy of your report at least once a year, right? And you can get that for free. You can go to the one of the websites, you know, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, and you can get that. Many, like Bank of America, we know we get a credit report so frequently. If you have a Discover card, you have Discover, right? You get free one through that, right? So there are certain cards that give you. Now, pay off balances on credit cards promptly, as much as possible. As much as possible. Right? I know it's not always easy to just do that, but if possible. Now, I'm going to tell you, you see this one that said pay bills on time? That is so important. That is the biggest part of what goes in your credit score. Paying bills on time. But many people don't know that, right? So you need to pay your bills. Don't let it go late. One day late. My wife didn't know she had not negative, but a slightly bad credit, because she had signed a note, co-signed a loan for her dad, and he made, 2 late payments? it knocked down her credit. Fortunately, she has, he's still alive, right? Oh no, well, I'm so sorry, he died. But she had a lawyer family member, and I contacted him. Yeah, the one that's a lawyer. Oh, he's still alive. Yeah. Kind, I know your dad is not alive. I thought you remember that. So I called him and I gave him all the information. And I said, could you contact the bank, Citibank or one of them? And I said, let them know it was never reported to her. Because if you co-sign, they don't have to tell you. All they have to do is hit your credit. And so he wrote a letter, and they eventually, after about 6 months, removed that negative stuff off her credit. Right? And so, but the Bible tells you not to be shorty for anyone anyway. Yes. Say, no, 6 months after he wrote the letter to them, the negative thing came off. But he followed up for us, right? So we didn't have to pay a lawyer. We used their cousin. Yeah. So we could not pay him anyway. We didn't have any money to pay him. All right. Then it said, pay off debt rather than move it around. What do I mean by moving debt around? Huh? Kiting. That's actually illegal. But it's where every time a thing comes in the mail, 6 months free, or a year, no interest. Don't do that. That negatively impacts you. 0 interest for the next year. Don't move. Pay it off. Now, if you get the opportunity to consolidate everything in one of those things, then you do that. But don't keep moving it around, because you have too many new accounts floating around there, right? And every time you go to a TJ Maxx or a Marshalls or a Ross or one of those, and they're like, but if you take out one of our cards right now, you get 10% off. Keep your 10%. Because that's going to negatively impact your credit score, right? Now, here's one that helped us. If you need to, contact, if you miss payments, get current, stay current. Miss payments, never good, right? That will negatively impact your score. If you need to, contact the CCCS, stands for Consumer Credit Counseling Services. That's the one in Florida. It's a free service to us here. You don't pay. CCCS, it's Consumer Credit Counseling Services. And so when we came, I'll go back to what Sandra said. When we came to Florida, we had New York debt. We lost our New York salary, and now our debt, we could pay it, but so much of our money was going into interest. And so I contacted them, and they are funded by the credit card industry, right? So they want you to get out of that kind of debt so they can get you into more debt, right? It's a little weird, but that's what they want. But they help you. So you go, not the credit card companies support them. Consumer Credit Counseling Service, they're really good. They want to help you to get out. They will have you come in, and you have to be willing to cut up every credit card except one. You have to, or they can't help you. So what I did, because I really wanted us to get out of debt quickly, I went to them. So now I stopped paying my credit card companies. We paid them. They took care of it. 6 months after we went to them, I then asked them, could you contact my credit card and have them lower the interest rate? Because that was my goal all the time. And they did. And then another 6 months, before you know it, we had been scheduled to get out of all our consumer debt except our house in like 5 years. Okay? But I didn't let 5 years bother me. Because if I didn't live for 5 years, then who are they going to, if my wife and I died in 5 years, who are they going to charge the credit? It would just have to be written off. So you can't look at it, I want it done right now. Well, because they kept dropping the interest rate, we end up paying off our debt in less than 3.5 years, right? Because we kept dumping, we didn't add any new debt to it, we just kept sacrificing, just eating bare minimum stuff, right, to keep us alive, praying about it, okay? And so they are a good place to start with as far as helping you. And now, the last one here that said, do rate shopping in a focused period of time. If you're going to buy a house, then generally what you want to do, don't Don't have someone run your credit this week, then next week someone else runs your credit, and then the next week. You want to do it like in a 1 week, no more than 2 weeks. You check out, like for instance, we're going to Oklahoma, and we like to live in our house. We don't like to live in rental properties. And so that way my wife can, do whatever she wants to do with it, and then we turn around and sell it. Okay? And so we called up every bank. There were 6 banks in the little town we were going, and we called up every one of them in like a 3-day period and found out what their interest rates, and obviously they had to run our credit. Well, that acts as one hit to your credit because they know what you're doing. You see, I work for one of the bureaus, so Equifax, so they know what you're doing. They know you're doing rate shopping to come up with the best deal. So it doesn't have that negative impact. Now, if we had done 1 week, then the next week, they don't really know what you're up to, right? So do rate shopping in a focused period of time, okay? Then, use credit cards wisely, only if you need to. And we have to think about what is a need, right? It's something that it has to happen. It's not a want, okay? Keep outstanding balances under 50% of available credit. Now, you want to pay it off, but I also know that the issue is that we can't just pay it off. So you want to try and get it below 50% as quickly as possible, because it will negatively impact the rate you get when it's over 50% of what the total credit that you have available to you. Okay? And then talk about making a budget again, right? I thought I would throw that in there again. So if you don't have a budget, you need to make one. Again, remember, I'll be able to send this to you. So, what do you think I show you this? I just grabbed this from online somewhere. Why do you think I'm showing you this? I didn't create this. I just went and I got it from online. What do you think that means? Anyone? All right, yeah, that's 15, 10, 10, 30, 35. What do you think that means for those who can see it? That's how they rate you. Where's the biggest part of it? Payment history. Do you remember I said make your payments on time? That's your payment history. If you're not paying on time, that's why my wife's credit got hit so hard. Because the biggest portion, and look at the next part. How much do you owe and how much of your available credit have you used? So if you have more than 50%, that one kicks in. And now 65% is where they're deciding. And so when you go in and you're like, but I have a really good job, I have a high paying job, why am I paying 11%? And someone who has half the pay I'm making is paying 2.5%. Because when they look up these things and they bounce that up, they're like, wait a minute, we don't know if we can trust that person. That's what they're saying. So this is, so no secret. You can go out there and Google this stuff. And this is what you're going to see. The other thing that I grab, again, right, I can always get this to you, okay? The other thing, because we're running far on time, this is how they kind of determine how, how interest rates that you may get, right? If you're in the 780 to 850, you're great. You go to my son and say, hey, Pierce, I need a car. He says, what is your credit score? And you say 780, he's like, man, you're going to rip me off. Because he knows that he can get the best interest rate. You can get the best deals on cars, right? Because they say, hey, you're a good person. They want to get you in there because then they know someone like you more than likely will keep, buying cars, doing stuff like that. So that kind of gives you an idea. Again, you can Google this stuff and find this. I grabbed this one from AI Bingham, right? And so it shows you, right? So obviously you can see if you're down in that anywhere below that 620, it's really tough for you. It's honestly, it's really tough. I didn't, when I came from Jamaica, I didn't even make it into the worst category because I kept buying everything cash. I didn't realize that America was set up to put you in debt. So I literally kept paying cash for everything. And then when I went to go buy a car, They say, you have no credit score. We can't lend you any money. I said, I've been paying cash for everything. They're like, we don't know that. And then my wife said, okay, we'll use my credit. That's when we found out her credit was messed up because her dad, yeah, and he didn't mean to, he's sending the payments and so forth. So these things are very important for us to know, okay? Now, we're going to quickly run through this. You should have seen this last night because we kind of have to get to wrapping up. I'm just talking about the senior partner plan, right? One spouse earns income, right? It's still everybody's money, right? Both spouses earn an income. It just is a review that I had put in there, okay? If both spouses make an income, it's still everyone, but it's whose money? It's not everyone's money, it's God's money, right? So by knowing that it's God's money, we know that everything is God's, and what are we? Stewards, okay? And so because we're stewards, we went through these scriptures, except, I don't remember if we went through 1 Corinthians 4:2 today. So I said, moreover, it is required in stewards that a man be found how? Faithful. You start with being faithful, okay? And then we went through this united income, last night. If you want, you can get the presentations from last night. This is just a review of what we did last night. United expenditures. Don't go running off on your own, making financial decisions that bind people. Do you know how many families get in trouble because one of the spouses decide to go buy a new car and surprise, just bought an Audi. In fact, I bought one for you too. My wife knows what I'm talking about. We didn't do that between me and her, but we know family members that did that, right? And they end up going bankrupt. Now, let me address this quickly. Now, I will tell you, I'm showing this because not all of us are at the same place. What do I mean? My wife and I know that our goal is to focus on getting a country property. That's what we want to do. We want to be self-sufficient. That's our goal, okay? But if you have a 403, I'll touch some stuff. If you have a 401k or 403b on your job where they're matching funds, you should use that because that's part of your pay you're not taking. Like St. Leo, if I put away 10% of my salary, they give me 9%. So let's say, to make things simple, let's say I make $100,000 a year. I put away $10,000, they automatically give me $9,000. That's money I would be throwing away, okay? So that kind of ties in with investing conservatively. Some of us retire too early, right? We're strong, we're healthy, and we're like, yeah, but what is the early? I don't even think about retirement. What is the early retirement? 62? So do you know when you retire at 62, all that money that you should be getting, they don't give it to you. They give you so much less, okay? And unfortunately, both my parents had to retire early because of illnesses. They had to. Some of us retired too early. Now, again, I mentioned mortgage last time. Generally speaking, your mortgage is the last thing you should be trying to pay off. If you have other debt and you're overpaying your mortgage, generally speaking, that's a wrong move. You should be paying off all those debt because they generally have higher interest rates than your mortgage anyway. Okay, so you should get that done. You should do rate shopping for insurance every year. We check it out. Sometimes my son or daughter will call me and say, hey, Dad, here's what the new thing is for insurance. I call my insurance agent and say, what are you doing? If it's close, I'm like, no, I'm not going to switch, right? But listen, nothing is held against you for switching insurance companies. Just make sure you're getting the same quality insurance. Okay, but I've been with this XYZ company for 35 years. Who cares? Are they charging you $50 more per month? Then why are you giving them? Why you so in love with them that you're going to give them $50 a month too much? Right? You have to be very careful. Right? I have changed our home insurance a number of times to get a better rate with the same coverage. And in fact, the last one we have on our house, I have a better coverage for less money, right? Because sometimes they just keep raising stuff on you. And, please, we are too intelligent to be falling for scams, okay? We are people of the book. We know if something looks too good to be true, it is. So don't do it, okay? So, last thing we want to do before I give you a 5-minute break and we go into Revelation seminar, because we have a really good one. It says, lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. For where your treasure is, there is your heart also.